Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, I'm Dan, and I'm the frontman for the band Sergeant Thunderhoof.
And how would you describe the music of Sergeant Thunderhoof?
Well, we get lumped into the stoner doom kind of genre. We do have elements of that, but generally I'd say we're a hard rock band with kind of psychedelic influences in there as well.
Now, was there a period in the past where you were much more comfortable being referred to as a stoner rock band or a stoner metal band?
Having that tag doesn't bother any of us because we all like that music, but we've all got varied influences and likes. So no, it's never bothered us. I suppose the music is just kind of taking its own kind of direction. So people say that we're in that kind of stoner scene, so that's cool with us. But personally, I would suggest we're more of a classic rock band than anything.
Let's give the listeners some background to your band. Tell me a little bit about when you formed and what brought you guys together.
Well, myself, bassist Jim, and the drummer Darren, we were in bands many years ago. Back in the late 90s, we were playing in bands, and so we've always kind of been around each other, and we've kind of gone our own ways and done separate bands. And back in 2013, we decided to just meet up for a jam with a guitarist called Mark Sayer, who I was in a bar band with. And it was just a case of getting in a room, making some noise, because we'd all been doing kind of other stuff. And we kind of wanted to go back to that, just kind of seeing what happens in a room, turning the amps up and not really caring. Because I think before that, obviously, I mean, I'm in my late 30s now. So when we were in bands growing up, we had that kind of dream of making it big and all that kind of stuff. And once that went away and once the ego kind of dissipated, you kind of just want to have fun and see what happens. So that's kind of the reason for the band starting. It was just to have a bit of fun.
Where did the name Sergeant Thunderhoof come from?
We were trying to think of a name for a long time, and all the names we came up with, not to sound like Lars Ulrich from Metallica, but they were very stock. It just sounded a lot of the names just sounded like we were trying too hard, or it just, you know, a lot of the bands in that kind of stoner doom scene, they've all got that type of, you know, obvious name, and wasn't really what we were interested in. And I've always liked bands who kind of use an imagery or a character or something other than the band to portray the music, because I mean, I've never been comfortable with my photo being taken, or, you know, I'm not much of a poser in terms of that kind of thing. I like the kind of imagery to kind of take over, like Iron Maiden do, you know, over the years. They've used Eddie to kind of be that kind of figurehead for their band. So I suggested maybe, you know, we have a character that we use, and literally I think someone said something like Captain Thunderhoof, you know, just funny, and then Sergeant Thunderhoof just stuck. And obviously since then we have built a backstory for the character, and we fleshed out the kind of thematic ideas of it, but it was literally just over a cup of tea and just came out of someone's mouth.
Does the character Sergeant Thunderhoof appear on your album covers the way that Eddie or Vic Rattlehead does?
Yes, he appears on the first full-length album, Ride of the Hoof. He's on the front cover riding a horse. On the first album cover, there's a character which is kind of like the female goddess, which we keep referring back to in all of our songs. She appears a couple of times. So all the artwork is all done by the same artist. And we like to keep a running theme. We want everything to kind of feel like it's part of the same family, but it's another step on the journey. So yeah, it is very important to us, the whole imagery of it.
At this point, you've released 2 albums and a number of EPs. How would you describe the progression, or let's say your musical journey over the course of your releases?
I suppose, looking back at our first EP, Ziggurat, which I don't know why we called it an EP, to be honest, because it is 40 minutes long, so it's basically an album, but we called it an EP at the time. So that was very much just the music that we had then, that we just recorded. And since then, obviously, it was since that point that the concept kind of started to take off. So lyrically, I was kind of thinking of in terms of, you know, where's this character going to go next, and what's the next evolution of it. Musically, I think we have matured a bit musically, and we're not afraid to try different things or to do anything that I think the issue we have, we don't have an issue, but one of the things we're aware of in this whole doom stoner desert kind of scene is there are a number of bands who tend to kind of stick to the formula, and to my ears that gets kind of boring, and I get kind of tired of listening to that. So we were very much conscious that we wanted to explore all of our influences and not be afraid to do something which might stick out a little bit or might run the risk of upsetting some of our fans. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of our fans kind of get into what we do, because we are quite varied in that regard.
I'm not that familiar with your music, but I did get a chance to listen to a number of your releases. Would you say that the psychedelic elements have become more prominent on the most recent releases?
I'd say, yeah, possibly. I think we've become a little bit more operatic in a way. I think the songs are they're taking on a bit more of a ambitious kind of tone. Not so much in the sounds we're using, just in the structures. And so, yeah, there's definitely psychedelia in there. Again, not consciously, but I think my vocals, I can tend to be quite ethereal with what I'm saying, and Mark, the guitarist, has quite an uncanny way of pulling out little melodies and things which, do harken back to that kind of psychedelic prog sound of the 70s. So, yeah, I would say we have become more psychedelic, but at the same time, we've also become more song-based. So there's, we really do appreciate the value of a good song. So, yeah, a bit of both, really.
You mentioned your vocals. One of the things about Sergeant Thunderhoof that, in my opinion, separates your band from a lot of other similar bands playing, psychedelic doom or however you want to describe it, are, in fact, your vocals. I'm curious about your background and how you developed this style.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, I used to be in hardcore metal bands back in the day, so I never did that much singing back then. It was more kind of barking and shouting and screaming, that kind of thing. But over the years, I'm a big fan of big vocalists like Mike Patton and, like I said, Devin Townsend, and I'm a fan of people like Ronnie James Dio, who has a lot of character and also has that kind of operatic feel. Not that I'm comparing myself to that, but I've always aspired to kind of have that kind of range and that power. And I've just worked on it personally. I've never really. It's just, yeah. I suppose if I listen to a recording of myself from 20 years ago, I don't sound anything like I do now. So, yeah, that's my background, just being into really good vocalists. And I know I'll never get anywhere near the likes of Mike Patton, but I think it's certainly a good thing to aspire to.
Did you take any kind of training or classes or anything like that?
I had one lesson, one 20-minute lesson when I was about 17, so about 20 years ago. But that was more about my breathing. But no, I've never had any formal tuition with regards to my vocals. But because I've been around music for over 20 years, and I run my own studio as well, so I'm kind of in the business. I am around very good people, so I'm always picking up little bits from what other people are doing, and I think that helps a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about the writing process and how you guys put songs together. Do you work as a band? I understand that you're the front man, so do you contribute to the music, or do you wait until the songs are done before your input comes in?
Yeah, most of the time, I'd say about 80% of what we do, we come up with in the room together. So someone will start playing a riff, or we'll just start jamming, and maybe something might sound good, and then we'll work on that. My contributions, I'm particularly good at structuring songs and knowing where a song should go and how long a bit should be and where it should progress. So one thing that we tend to do, which was really beneficial for us, is we record all our practices just on a little stereo mic, and I will go away after the end of the practice and I'll chop out all the best bits and I'll send them to the band, just ideas, and we'll stick them in a little online folder, just so we can kind of, when we're stuck for an idea, we can always just open up that folder and try and pluck a riff out from the ether. And we found that speeds up the writing process quite a lot. So everything's done together in the room. There have been a few occasions where someone like Jim or Mark have come up with a riff at home, brought it to the band. For instance, on the last album, Terra Solis, there was a song called Priestess of Misery, which Mark pretty much demoed himself in his bedroom, and then we just refined it as a band. But that was very much his inception. But I'd say 80 to 90% of the stuff we actually come up with in the room together, making noise.
Yeah.